Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the interwebs. Welcome back for the latest edition of Ask RGD. If you are new to this channel or you are new to this video series, the rules of Ask RGD are very, very simple. You submit to me in the form of a comment, an email, a Facebook message, what have you, a guitar or guitar-related question, and I answer said guitar or guitar-related question in a video. So, without further ado, let's get to today's Ask RGD question. This one here comes from MetalBass79. He says, I'd like to see a studio tour. Also, if you could show some love to the low-enders, I'd love to see how you've been recording your bass tones. They're quite good. Thank you very, very much, MetalBass79. I actually have a couple of regular viewers on this channel whose screen names, 2 or 3 of you screen names all start with Metal Bass and then a number after it, so it's kind of tough to keep you all straight. But regardless, regarding the studio tour, this comment, here, in my interim, they're in my interim when I wasn't able to post any videos for a couple of weeks as I was working on getting caught up with all the stuff that I had on my plate at one time. I managed to squeeze off a couple of live stream videos from my iPhone in my car there along the way, and this comment was left on one of those. And in that particular video, I had asked if my viewers would be interested in a video of me doing a studio tour. And long story short, the consensus of that was most of you seem to be pretty interested in seeing that, so that video will be coming very, very soon. In the meantime, this question was also left on one of those live stream videos. So, excellent question, and this is primarily a guitar channel. So admittedly, the bass players don't get a whole lot of love here. Certainly nothing wrong with bass players, but I'm not a bass player. If you have watched any more than about 34 seconds worth of content on this channel, you are probably well aware that I am not a bass player. Despite the fact that I am, featured playing bass on a number of my videos. With full track demos, demoing various pieces of guitar gear, what have you. But I'm not a bass player. I'm a guitar player that owns a couple of basses that needs to track a bass from time to time. And that is the extent of my bass playing skills. But that said, for somebody who is a bass player, seems to enjoy the bass tones that I've gotten. How am I doing that? Well, let me show you. It's actually not it's not a real complicated process, I need to keep things as simple as possible, and for a lot of my recording stuff, there's the Laney IRT Studio that I use for my guitar rig. For a bass, really what I do is I take said bass guitar, that right there is a Charvel 3B that I was fortunate enough to pick up here just a few months back. I've already gotten a lot of use out of that bass. That Charvel 3B goes straight into this Art Accessories X-Direct DI box. Probably, it's pretty simple. There's nothing too complicated on it. But of course, the input 1/4 inch goes right there where you see my pinky. Then I run an XLR out from that side, and then that just goes straight into the Focusrite 2i2 interface that you see right there. And as far as the physical signal path, the hardwire portion of it, that's it. The rest of it really is all virtual, all software. And I'll show you what I do there. Give me here as I log in, as I pull up what is basically become known as the software bane of my existence, otherwise known as OBS, screen capture software. This is Pro Tools that I have pulled up here, and of course, this will work in pretty much any modern DAW that you might be using. So, but in this case, it's this case here lately, it's been primarily Pro Tools. So, what I would do is, you go to a track, any track, that is, open up a new track that you're going to use to chord bass, and we'll call it bass. And primarily what I use is Amplitude, Amplitude 4. And there is a preset in there that is basically a Gallion-Kruger MB. So I can't recall which exactly which amp model it is based off of, but regardless, that's the one that I use most of the time. Sometimes I'll switch it up and I'll go to to like an Ampeg SVT, or something even a little bit more vintagey sounding than that. But regardless, that is pretty much it. From there, I mean, that's the basis of most of the bass tones on, most of the tracks in my videos that you've heard. That is 90% of them, really. Every now and again, like when I earlier on when I used to do full track demos with my Tascam 24 track, then I would actually mic up my acoustic B450 combo. That's really, really difficult for me to do in this environment, because in order to get that to sound right, that amp's got to be cranked up pretty loud, and it's particularly difficult for the other people, and particularly my dog. She really doesn't like that bass amp at all. She loves my guitar amp. She'll go sit right in front of it when I'm playing guitar, but she does not like the bass amp at all. So. So I don't really get to mic up actual bass amps very often anymore, and so it's been all virtual. And that preset for that Gallion-Kruger one has definitely become my favorite. It's definitely the one that I use the most. And no, I don't mess with any of the controls on it. I stick with the default factory preset on there, and then I might add some compression via IK Multimedia's T-Rax. Mixing and mastering software. Those plugins I think are fantastic, and I also will add some EQ from T-Rax as well. Their classic EQ I particularly enjoy. That's what you've heard, so nothing too fancy. Now I am thinking of changing things up a little bit later on this year, because one thing that I've noticed with guitars is some of the virtual guitar amps in there that I think are pretty cool, and I've gotten some pretty good sounds out of, but none of them, tone wise, you just can't beat an actual tube amp. So that Laney IRT Studio that I use to go direct into the interface and record that way, I've gotten some great sounds out of. So I'm thinking about doing the same thing with the bass, and I'm still back and forth between whether or not I want to go with a rack mount with a Mark bass, particularly like the Little Mark 250, I think it is. I might end up just going with a SansAmp Tech 21 SansAmp RBI preamp instead. One of those two. Actually, it'll probably end up being a combination. It'll end up being both, and I'll kind of mix and match to taste as the situation calls for. And then, of course, I'm getting ready to. I have a new interface that I'm going to upgrade. I just need to get all the stuff that's on my plate done first, and then I'm going to install that, because that's going to be a little bit of work involved in that, because there's a lot of cables that got to get reran. But beyond that, that's pretty much how I do it. And nothing fancy. Very, very simple. Simple recording, bass recording rig for, a guitar player who's really not, who's really not much of a bass player. So, but when you need to add some bass tones for recording, that's how I figured out how to do it. So thank you so much, MetalBase79, for submitting your question. I always enjoy answering these. This admittedly is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, which I'm sure some of you are probably thrilled about. Please don't hesitate to send me some more Ask RGD questions. I need some more Ask RGD questions so I can continue doing Ask RGD videos. Along those lines, also, if you haven't already, please consider hitting the subscribe button to this channel and leave a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite recording tricks are, particularly for bass. I'm sure there's a zillion different ways to record bass that I've never tried or I'm not familiar with at all. Links to all the gear mentioned, discussed, used, etc., in this video will be down in the description as well. Thank you so much for watching. Adios.